Hey, what's going on, guys? So I was talking with the guys in my Discord server. We came up to the conclusion that it would be kind of cool to maybe try out some really cheap, dirt cheap airbrushes. And so that's what we're going to be taking a look at in today's video. And there's a couple other things in here. Let me show you guys what I got, and we'll take a look at testing this stuff out and see kind of how it all is going to work. Now, I'm not even sure about like some of the packaging here on this. So for example, it says water replenishing instrument on this one, which I'm pretty sure is one of the airbrushes, but water replenishing instrument is not exactly how I would describe an airbrush. I just want to check. Yeah, so this is one of the airbrushes. And we'll take a closer look at all this stuff here in just a minute. I just kind of want to go through what some of the stuff that are in this box is here. We got another plastic wrapped box inside this plastic wrapping. And this one, I'm pretty sure, is airbrush number 2. This is the airbrush that comes with a small little mini compressor. Take a look at that. And then a couple of other smaller boxes here. A couple of things that I got were things to paint with those airbrushes. So like there's a couple of little figures and statue things that I wanted to get in order to test the airbrushes out on. This one here, just in this kind of envelope, is another airbrush. So I think we have 3 airbrushes to try in today's video. This is one of the statues to try our airbrush on. Here it's a Nike Goddess of Victory statue, because I do enjoy the game, so a little statue there. And this big box must be the other statue, which I didn't think was going to be this big, or maybe it's just got a lot of packaging on it. More styrofoam. Ugh. Well, this is quite big. Anyway, take a look at this bust here. I don't remember what this is called. Got black at the bottom. It's definitely hollow. What is it made out of? It's like a painted plastic, though. It's not 3D printed. It's just like a molded plastic, but it's painted black at the base and then white there on the top. Again, I'll show you guys in some more detail, but this one, we can try painting this, because I definitely don't really like the fact that the base is just black. It's kind of ugly, but this one probably be better to hand paint, to be honest, but we'll try out our airbrushes on that. All right, let's take a closer look at the airbrushes and everything. All right, so let's take a look at the first of our airbrushes here, which is just wrapped in some bubble wrap here. As you can see, this one's gonna be super duper basic. It looks like even this back part, feels like steel, but all the pink part feels like aluminum. So this is gonna be a gravity feed brush, in that our cup is here on the top, which is a screw off cap. A lot of times it's just like a pop off one. The screw off one, probably not very good, because if you get paint in there, that's gonna like mess up the threading for the screw off cap. I usually just kind of leave the cap off anyway, but if you are gonna use the cap, just I guess make sure not to get any paint there in that part. And it is gonna be just single action, so it's not gonna have any pressing mechanism for the airflow. It's only gonna be just pulling back. So you're gonna have full airflow the entire time, and just pulling back for letting your paint out of the cup there. That'd be really funny if it didn't include a needle in here, although I'm assuming that there is. And yeah, the pink part, actually this pink part is made of plastic. The cup feels like it's aluminum probably. This part is plastic, and even this end cap is plastic too. It's just chrome painted plastic, but only this main body part feels like steel. Once we get this out, I'm not even sure like what the size of the needle is for this one. And in fact, I can't even get this unscrewed here at the end. I'm gonna have to whip out my great granddad's pliers here and try to unscrew this carefully. There we go, just to loosen that up. And the needle also, not too sure, but yeah, I can definitely tell the needle doesn't exactly feel like the highest quality needle that I've ever seen. This is actually going to be my first time ever using a single action airbrush, so it should be interesting just to kind of see what that's like, how it compares to the dual action one that I'm used to. Kind of funny that this back end part's plastic. Really all it kind of really needs to do is to just protect the needle. So like if you drop this or something, if you drop it on the back end, it's going to push the needle up into there, it's going to break. So really all it needs to do is protect that. This back end part here should also ideally screw, and it looks like it does, to kind of control how far you can pull back the needle. So if you screw this in more, you're not going to be able to pull the needle back like at all. Otherwise, if you back this out, then you can pull the needle back farther, just to control how much paint you're spraying out at once. So this is all plastic here at the end, but that, it kind of works in theory. The cup just screwed onto here. So yeah, just some aluminum. So we'll see how well that holds up and how well that works. Okay, airbrush number 2 is our water replenishing instrument here in a much more substantial box for this one, which is nice, but there's a little bit more in here instead of just the airbrush itself. And we do have some instructions there. A fairy oxygen injection instrument. So this does have this kind of oxygen tank here part. And that would be this part here, which you can plug in. And we do have the cords. This is going to be USB charged. And when you turn it on, it does give us airflow out of there. So it's like a USB powered air pump for the bottom of our compressor. I'm not sure what the PSI is. There's on the inside, if you unscrew the bottom part of that, looks to be like basically battery right there and some basic components inside this. It is like a metal. Also kind of feels like maybe it's aluminum maybe, but it does have some weight to it. So probably some steel aspects to it up at the top. The airbrush itself feels exactly the same. So I think this is exactly the same airbrush. Because again, this back part here is plastic. The cup is the same, it's just in green instead of pink. So, and it's the same single action airbrush here. But aside from this and the air canister, which this should just screw on here, let's see. So that's just screwed onto there like that. So essentially you can use this without any compressor in theory. And once you just turn this on, it's giving us our airflow, and then you just press and release or pull the trigger back for paint. So pretty straightforward. We do also have an addition of another plastic cup, which is a much larger size there. I wanted to look closely to see if it does have a couple of lines on there, but no actual like measurements of like 10 cc's or like 0.5 milliliters, whatever the case might be for measurements on there. But again, plastic, I'm not sure how well it's gonna hold up with a lot of use with lacquer paints. But I would feel like this would be kind of harder to clean, but we'll see. And I'm gonna go ahead and plug this in to make sure that it's all completely charged up for our experiment with this. I just have a feeling that the PSI is gonna be the issue with this one. You know, how well that airflow really works. And I'm wondering, where's the air actually going in? It's gotta be like sucking the air into here and then pushing it up out through there, but where's the intake? I kind of wonder if just like this gap around here, around the plug-in and the button, if that's like the only hole, because I can hear like when I cover that up, it's kind of restricting the airflow a bit, because otherwise I can't see any other hole where it's taking air in order to blow it up out through the airbrush. But very interesting concept. We'll see how well that works. And now for the third and final brush here, like I said, this is in a much larger box because this one includes a mini compressor. So again, an option for if you don't want to use a full-on compressor, there's our hose for that. And let's take a look at the hose here real quick. It looks like a fairly nice hose. I mean, it's like a nylon braided hose there that you would see kind of typical for an airbrush. That's good. You've got the charge adapter. It's just like a DC adapter there, a little stand, and the compressor itself is just this little guy here like that. Oh, kind of cool. I guess here in the bag there's more than just the little stand part, so that's going to be what you can plug on here onto the top to hold your airbrush. It's the main power switch right there, I guess, and there's where you're gonna plug this in, and it looks like there's spots to plug in 2 airbrushes. Oh, no, our airbrush is gonna be plugged in here. This is just a adjust valve, so I guess this is how we're gonna adjust your PSI, although there's no way to tell what the PSI is. There's no meter for that. You could plug onto here a PSI, I don't know what you would call it, meter, onto the side of there, I guess. It's not included though, so you can just adjust the PSI with this over here. Here's where it's gonna be plugged in for the power, and that's it. In this little bag here, we do also have a little spoid, so a little eyedropper there, and also a little tool for the airbrush. We've got some instructions here, and then the airbrush itself, which this one is gonna be a little bit different, I believe. So this airbrush, let's see, the back end, is it gonna be plastic once again? Actually, yeah, it does feel like the back end, once again, yeah, this black part is plastic. The end part though is a steel metal piece there, the adjuster, and also the cup is not removable in this case. It's just a kind of a part of the airbrush, as you can see here, but that does mean that it is going to be in steel. The cap is it a pull off or a twist off type cap? All right, it took some muscle, but it is just a pull off type cap. It was really, really tight on there, so I'm nervous about putting it back on again. I'm just gonna leave that off, save myself the trouble, but quite a wide gap there at the bottom where the paint's going in directly into the cavity there. So it's very interesting. I've not used an airbrush quite like this before. Now this is a dual action brush, so you have the push down on the trigger for air, pull back for paint. And yeah, as you guys saw maybe just a second ago there, it did have this little extra kind of safety protective cap there on the end. So seems like kind of the best quality airbrush of the three so far. Not sure how well this compressor is gonna work. And again, just kind of like with both of these, my concern is just the air pressure, the PSI. It's really important to have good and consistent airflow there for the airbrush to work really well to spray your paint in a desired way. But yeah, this is just gonna stay on there like that. Okay, so a real quick look at what we're gonna be painting here as well. Like I said, we got this little Nike statue here. And this one does actually feel like it's probably poured plaster or something like that for it is like actual like stone, not plastic for this one. But that's about 12 centimeters tall, so nice little size there. This one, like I said, much larger, and this one just like a molded like PVC plastic feels like. And just with painted black on the bottom, painted white there on the top. We're gonna paint that in probably gold, I think. Like I said, very obviously knockoff anime character figures. I wanted to get ones that would have sections that would be easy to paint. Like for example, for this one, I want to just repaint the t-shirt basically. So I'm just going to mask off the skin parts and the hair. I might try to see if I can disassemble it even, just to take off the head would be easier. I'm going to see if I can do that. Maybe try to clean up the plastic a little bit, maybe paint like a gradient on the hair or something like that, but mostly just kind of repainting the t-shirt as just a test subject for us. And this one as well, similarly, think I'll probably mask the skin parts and maybe like spray. Maybe that's something else that we can try because the skin needs some cleanup. I can see like there's some flash and like the molding is not very clean. You can see like on over here. So like I'll maybe try to clean up the actual mold a little bit first, and then just because it's such like plain, there's no shading or anything on the actual skin. So maybe we'll try that with the airbrush as well. Try to just add in some shading on the skin areas, mask those, and then repaint the bunny suit here for this character. So alright, all that said, let's go ahead and get to work. I want to test them out in the order that we looked at them basically. So just this one first, which is just the basic airbrush. I'm going to be using my compressor that I just kind of normally use. We'll see how well just this cheap, super cheap basic airbrush does. Then we'll try out this one with its kind of built-in air compressor and no hoses or anything attached. And then we'll try out the mini compressor one. Alright, so review time. Now that I've used the airbrush to paint a couple of pieces here, I'll show those to you in just a second. As for the first airbrush, the pink one, I couldn't use this at all because it didn't come with an adapter and I don't have the proper adapter that it requires. Because this is single action, it needs an adapter that doesn't have a pressure sensor in it. So like to plug it into a hose, there's nothing to screw onto. So I thought, okay, I'll just take this out of here, and that does fit into there, but this one is for a dual action airbrush because that's a pressure sensor right there that you would normally, on a dual action airbrush, that's when you press down, it presses down on this to let out the air. If you can't press down on that, it can't push this down and there's gonna be no air coming out. So the fact that this doesn't include an adapter means you will have to buy something separately in order to actually be able to use this. I was not able to use it. That said, I was able to use this one, which is the same airbrush, it's just attached to this piece here at the bottom, which is going to be kind of the main focus of what we were looking at with this one. So with this airbrush, yeah, while I was in the middle of painting, the battery died on this, and so I had to stop what I was doing and pour my paint back into the bottle, and I had to go and charge this more and then go back, and then after waiting for it to charge, then had to go back and continue painting with this. As for how the airbrush worked, I mean, the PSI, I don't know what the PSI is meant to be. It's low though, so it's not great. And for my first experience painting with a single action airbrush, I can tell you guys, I really don't recommend it. I just felt like I had so little control compared to a dual action airbrush, which is what I'm used to, being only able to control the paint flow and not also control the airflow. It just felt like you might as well just be using a spray can at that point, because there was very, very little control with this. So it worked fine for like large pieces like this is what you guys saw me painting. So I painted the gold on here. The base part, I just hand painted that in just some SMS, like a light tan kind of color. But I mean, as you can see, it painted the color on there fine. It works, but like I said, it just kind of feels like using a spray can. Like there was just very little control with that. So I would not really recommend it. And especially for extended use, it's not really gonna work well. If you wanted to just have one on hand, I will try to say something positive about these airbrushes. And I will say, like, if you just wanted to keep this on hand for maybe just only using for like your final top coat, so you really only need it to work for like 5-10 minutes maximum, and just gonna spray a bunch of top coat all over your piece once it's finished, it'll work fine for that. I wouldn't really recommend it for much of anything else. Now, as for the last brush here, this was definitely far and away the best one, for one reason, just because it was dual action. So like I said, it just comes down to having more control. I don't like the fact that the hole in there is quite large, where your paint actually goes down. It's just a little bit weird with the cup molded into there and having that gap like that. So a little bit uncomfortable, but overall, I mean, it worked fine. The main issue was, again, mostly with the compressor, and just a couple things of note with that. You'll see I accidentally sprayed some paint on there because I normally keep my airbrush in a kind of a cleaning pot. So when I'm rinsing it out, I'm used to just being able to just spray into the cleaning pot, and I forgot that it wasn't in one. I just sprayed paint all over the compressor. And that's one thing that I think you're probably going to have an issue with this, aside from the airflow, which is going to be the main thing. Having the airbrush right here, and maybe like while you're mixing some paint or stirring this or something, inevitably you're gonna spill paint onto the compressor, probably onto this button here. So you can kind of turn this and maybe like turn it away from there a little bit, but still it's very close to the actual like working components of the compressor. And it's only a matter of time, I feel like, until you're gonna get paint either onto here or onto here, and it's just gonna be kind of messy. The airflow of this was also not great. It was, again, I don't know what the PSI is meant to be. You can adjust it slightly here with this, and I did do that a little bit. For this figure here, I painted the skin tone on this, and I tried to make that look a little bit better with like some shading. So being able to adjust the PSI down on that compressor will allow me to do a little bit more precise kind of painting in some areas for doing some shading on the skin for this. I think it came out okay. I'm still not very good at painting skin tone. It's kind of difficult, but with this, I was basically just doing some shadowing in some areas and then just kind of an overall kind of color tone change a little bit to the skin, just to make it look a little bit more alive. So the fact that you can adjust the control on this, I mean, it kind of works okay when you want to drop it down for doing some more precise work. Ultimately though, again, using a compressor that has an air tank would ultimately be my recommendation. That allows you the most consistent airflow, because it just keeps the tank pressurized, and then the flow, whatever's coming out to your actual airbrush, will be consistent with a compressor that has a tank. So that'd be my recommendation. Don't recommend this, although it was kind of fine if you're just wanting to get into airbrushing. You just want to try it out. I would say this is probably your best option if you really want a dirt cheap option for just trying out airbrushing. This works pretty all right. The dual action airbrush is good. The compressor did a fine job, but it's not like the best thing I would recommend. As for like the figures and stuff themselves, I mean, I did start doing like some more cleanup on this, like trying to sand some of like the mold lines and flash and stuff, and then I just kind of realized, like, why am I doing that? I just kind of gave up. But I did clean it up some. In order to separate the parts, I actually looked up a video on how to do that, and you can separate the parts on a PVC figure like this just by pouring like boiling water over it, and that's meant to kind of loosen the glue a little bit. It sort of worked. It was still kind of difficult to do, but I separated the parts some, and then that made it easier. I did end up still having to do some masking, but as you can see, aside from shading the skin, I also repainted the suit and the leg parts into silver, the shoes into black, the cuffs and the armband, I added the Zaft waterside decal on there. Those I painted in black, the collar in black, the bunny ears in black, and then the hair obviously repainted in this magenta color that's also just from SMS. So I think it's definitely an improvement over how the kit came, but obviously not going to be still as nice as the actual official figure. So I would just not recommend picking up a bootleg one. If you really, really want to customize one, I mean, you can still get the official figure and customize that if you want to. The last thing was this one. You guys saw me doing a technique on this to give it sort of the look of a marble statue. So what I did was painted a couple of like dark metallic colors onto it first, and then stretched that kind of stretchy spiderweb cotton swab kind of stuff over it, and then you spray white. Actually, it was like an off-white color that I sprayed over the top of that, and it actually kind of goes through, and it gives you this kind of marble pattern. Then I went over this with just a thinned down, like really dark gray enamel wash, basically. Just kind of painted that over the whole thing, wiped that off, cleaned that all off, and this is how it ended up looking. And I'm really happy with this. I think it looks really cool. I did end up just leaving the base part black for now, just for lack of a better option. I'm not really sure what else really to do with that. I think it looks better now that this is not pure white, the base being black. It doesn't bother me quite as much now being black, but ultimately maybe we'll end up painting it in a different color, but I think it looks okay. For now, I'm really, really happy with how this ended up looking. I think it does look quite cool. But that's going to do it for this video, guys. Hope that was interesting and informative for you if you're interested in getting into airbrushing and don't want to spend a whole lot of money. Here's a couple of options for you, but obviously, as you can see, there's certain things that I would recommend and not, just from the items that I tried out here. And so I hope that was useful information for you guys who are wanting to try out airbrushing. And then you were able to see what I was able to do with these airbrushes, just with some kind of like simple figures here. But I mean, you could get an idea of how useful or not these airbrushes might be if you're planning on painting Gunpla or whatever else that you might want to paint with these. If you guys are looking forward to some more in-depth information about painting and especially airbrushing as well, I will be doing some videos at long last after many years of talking about it. Videos kind of redoing my video series that I did many years ago about how to paint Gunpla. So I'm working on right now the plan on redoing those videos and doing a series of videos about airbrushing as well, so I'll be working on that. Hope this video was interesting and helpful for you guys. And of course, if you guys do have any other questions about any of the products or processes that you saw covered in today's video, you can let me know down in the comment section below. Let me know what you think about the repainting on the figures there as well. And thank you guys so much for all of your support, liking the video, commenting, subscribing. It's all very helpful, so thank you guys all so much for all your support. Till next time, hope you guys all have a great day. I'll see y'all later. Bye-bye.